The cruelest rooms are often the ones with the softest lighting. On a cold Friday evening in downtown Chicago, the Aurelia room glowed like a jewel box against the darkened street, its floor-to-ceiling windows casting warm amber light onto rows of polished black sedans and impeccably dressed guests stepping onto the curb in tailored coats and designer heels. Inside, crystal chandeliers shimmered above white linen tables, and a pianist in the corner played a familiar jazz standard softly enough to sound expensive. The restaurant was the kind of place where a 12-ounce ribeye cost more than some families spent on groceries in a week, where sparkling water arrived before you asked, and where staff could supposedly anticipate your needs before you spoke them. But tonight, beneath the polished silver and curated elegance, something far less refined was waiting to be exposed. Nathan Whitmore adjusted the cuff of his plain white server's shirt and glanced at his reflection in the mirrored service station. Without the tailored suits, luxury watch, and executive entourage the business magazines loved to photograph, he looked exactly like what he intended to appear to be, another working man nearing 40, earning a paycheck beneath someone else's rules. No one around him suspected the truth. No one knew that Nathan owned not only the Aurelia room, but 27 high-end hospitality properties across the country. He had built his empire on one principle his late father drilled into him before he ever signed a contract. Luxury means how you treat people, not how expensive the wallpaper is. Recently, however, customer feedback, internal turnover reports, and anonymous complaints had suggested something was changing. Staff arrogance. Selective service. Quiet humiliation of guests who didn't fit the image. Nathan had heard enough polished excuses in boardrooms. Tonight, he wanted the truth without warning anyone. "Table 12 wants another bottle of Napa Cab," barked a line captain as he rushed past. Nathan nodded, keeping his expression neutral. He had spent the first hour observing. The mechanics were flawless. Plates landed precisely. Drinks were refilled at perfect intervals. Smiles appeared on command. But perfection could be a costume. He knew that better than anyone. At the host stand, Vanessa Cole stood like a queen guarding her kingdom. Mid-30s, immaculate posture, expensive haircut, every syllable sharpened by control. She was one of the highest-rated managers in the company on paper. Profitable location. Strong VIP retention. Excellent event performance. But Nathan had learned numbers rarely told the whole story. A burst of laughter rose from a table near the center, where a venture capitalist Nathan recognized from a fundraiser gestured dramatically while discussing a ski property in Aspen. Another guest complained about the temperature of imported butter. A woman requested her martini be remade because the olives looked emotionally exhausted. Nathan almost smiled. Then the front door opened, and the atmosphere shifted in a way only certain rooms can manage. Not because anyone announced it. Because judgment entered before the guests had even taken 3 steps. Claire Bennett hesitated just inside the doorway, one hand holding the small fingers of her daughter, Lily. Claire wore a simple navy dress that had clearly been carefully pressed at home, though the fabric had softened with age. Her coat was modest, practical, department store rather than designer. Lily, maybe 6 years old, wore a cream cardigan and sparkly shoes that had seen better days but were obviously chosen with pride. Her hair was tied with a ribbon slightly off-center, the kind of imperfection only a loving parent rushing out the door would create. Claire leaned down and whispered something to Lily that made the little girl grin and straighten her shoulders as though entering a castle. Nathan watched Vanessa's expression change almost imperceptibly. The smile remained, but only technically. "Good evening," Vanessa said in the precise tone of someone trained never to sound openly rude. "Do you have a reservation?" Claire offered a small hopeful smile. "Yes, under Bennett." Claire Bennett. Vanessa checked the screen. "I see it." A pause. Tiny. Deliberate. "Just the 2 of you?" "Yes." Lily beamed. "It's my birthday." Claire gently touched her daughter's arm, embarrassed but affectionate. Vanessa's smile tightened by a fraction. "Of course." She picked up 2 menus but did not move immediately. Nathan noticed another couple entering behind them dressed in designer labels. Vanessa glanced past Claire toward them, then back. Follow me. She led Claire and Lily not toward the warmly lit center dining area but toward a cramped corner near the service corridor where servers moved constantly with trays and kitchen doors swung open with bursts of noise. Technically a valid table. Functionally a message. Lily didn't notice. Mom, this place is beautiful, she whispered loudly enough for Nathan to hear. Claire smiled in that tired way parents do when they want joy to survive reality. It is. Nathan remained still, tray in hand, watching something familiar unfold, not the obvious kind of cruelty, but the socially acceptable version. The kind delivered with perfect diction and polished manners. And if his instincts were right, the night was only beginning. Claire sat carefully, smoothing the edge of her navy dress before helping Lily climb into the oversized velvet chair across from her. The table was so close to the service corridor that every few seconds the kitchen door pushed open with a rush of heat, clattering dishes, and fragments of hurried conversation, but Lily looked around as though she had just entered a royal ballroom. Mom, she whispered, her eyes wide at the chandeliers overhead. Do you think they have dessert with sparklers? Claire smiled, though the kind of smile Nathan recognized instantly, the kind that carried effort behind it. Maybe, she said softly. If we are lucky. Nathan moved past with a tray balanced on one hand, saying nothing, but paying attention. Claire opened the menu and her expression changed for just a second. A quick inhale. A pause at the prices. The kind of pause people thought no one noticed unless they had once lived it themselves. Nathan had. Long before private aviation and investor meetings, he remembered watching his mother calculate grocery totals in her head before stepping into checkout lines. Claire quickly recovered, turning the menu toward Lily. Birthday girl gets first look. Lily traced a finger over the descriptions she probably did not understand. What is truffle? Claire laughed quietly. Definitely not chicken nuggets. Lily giggled. A young server approached, clearly assigned to the table but already looking impatient. Can I start you with sparkling or still? Claire glanced up. Just tap water is fine, thank you. The server's smile dimmed by half a what. Of course. He disappeared. At a nearby table, a sharply dressed woman in a cream blazer lowered her voice just enough to ensure it could still be overheard. Why do places like this even take reservations from people who clearly are not ordering properly? Her companion gave a restrained laugh. Claire kept her eyes on the menu. Lily did not seem to notice. Nathan noticed everything. A few minutes later, the water arrived, no bread service included, though other tables had received it automatically. Claire quietly asked the server, Excuse me, could I ask a question about portion sizes? The server nodded without enthusiasm. The roasted chicken, Claire said. Would it be enough to share with my daughter if I ordered an extra plate? The answer came too quickly. Not really. Claire hesitated. What about the soup? That depends what you consider enough. He walked away before she could respond. Nathan's jaw tightened, though his expression remained neutral. Claire looked embarrassed, but then Lily leaned forward and whispered, Mom, I am not super hungry. It was the kind of lie children tell when they already understand too much. Claire reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Tonight is special, she said gently. No pretending. Lily smiled. Can I get something that sounds fancy? Absolutely. Claire looked back at the menu, doing quiet math with courage disguised as calm. Meanwhile, Vanessa passed by and briefly examined the untouched table with an unreadable expression. Nathan intercepted one of the service staff. Why no bread there? He asked casually. The employee shrugged. Manager call. Policy change? The man smirked. Unwritten one. Nathan said nothing. A few minutes later, Claire placed the order. 1 bowl of lobster bisque. 1 side of mashed potatoes. 1 child's pasta, though Lily had technically aged out of the kids' menu according to policy. And if possible, Claire added carefully, could you bring an extra small plate? The server wrote it down without comment. Lily leaned in excitedly. Mom, this is the fanciest place ever. Claire smiled. Then we should act like experts. How? Sit up straight. Say thank you. Pretend we belong here. Nathan caught that sentence while polishing glasses nearby. Pretend we belong here. Something about those words stayed with him. Because no guest should ever have to pretend. Across the room, the wealthy couple from earlier ordered a $1,000 bottle of wine with less thought than Claire had given a side dish. The imbalance was obvious, but wealth was not the issue. Character was. When the food finally arrived, Lily's face lit up like morning sunlight. It looks amazing. Claire quietly divided portions with practiced care, making it look generous even when it was modest. Nathan noticed she barely served herself. Then Lily spotted a dessert cart passing by and whispered, "That chocolate cake looks incredible." Claire glanced over and then quickly back to her daughter. "Maybe later," she said in the gentle voice of someone trying to keep hope alive without making promises she could not keep. Nathan checked the system from the service terminal when no one was watching. Reservation notes. Claire Bennett. Booked 3 weeks ago. Special request, first real birthday dinner after difficult year. Daughter loves fancy places. Please make it memorable if possible. Nathan stared at the screen a moment longer than necessary. Then he looked toward their table, where Lily was carefully using grown-up manners while Claire acted as though this tiny meal was exactly what she had planned all along. And for the first time that evening, Nathan stopped observing the restaurant as a business problem and started seeing it as something personal. The dessert cart rolled past slowly enough to feel intentional, its polished silver trays displaying miniature cakes, glazed tarts, and chocolate creations that looked more like sculpture than food. Lily followed it with open admiration, her eyes shining with the uncomplicated wonder only children could manage. Claire saw that look and gently brushed a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. "Maybe we can just look at dessert menus," she said softly, framing compromise as possibility. Lily nodded with brave enthusiasm, though Nathan could tell disappointment had landed. At the neighboring table, the woman in the cream blazer took a sip of wine and said to her husband, in a voice engineered to travel, "Some parents really should manage expectations better." Claire heard it. Nathan saw her hear it. But she chose silence. That, he suspected, was not weakness. It was survival. Another table nearby had become increasingly animated, a group of affluent guests celebrating what sounded like a private equity acquisition. Loud confidence, expensive watches, laughter that expected the room to tolerate it. One man in his early 50s with silver at his temples and the casual entitlement of old money glanced toward Claire's table more than once. Eventually, he leaned toward his companions and said, "I give it 20 minutes before they ask for something to be comped." A few people chuckled. Nathan's grip tightened around the tray he carried, but he remained still. Claire focused on Lily, helping her twirl pasta properly, pretending the rest of the room had vanished. "Am I doing it fancy enough?" Lily asked. Claire smiled warmly. "You are doing it better than anyone here." Nathan nearly smiled himself. Then Vanessa approached Claire's table with professional brightness that never reached her eyes. "Is everything satisfactory?" Claire nodded politely. "Yes, thank you." Vanessa glanced at the mostly shared dishes. "Wonderful." A beat passed. "Just to clarify, our birthday dessert amenity is typically reserved for premium tasting experiences and event bookings." Claire looked confused. "I did not ask for anything complimentary." "Of course," Vanessa replied, her tone making the words feel less like reassurance and more like correction. "Just setting expectations." Lily looked between them, sensing tension she could not fully interpret. Claire's cheeks colored slightly. "Understood." Vanessa smiled and moved on. Nathan stared after her. That had not been policy. That had been theater. A few minutes later, Lily excused herself quietly. "Mom, can I go wash my hands?" Claire looked around uncertainly. "Stay where I can see you." Nathan stepped forward before he fully thought it through. "Restrooms are straight down the hall and left," he said kindly. Lily smiled. Thank you, sir. Claire offered a grateful nod. Thank you? Her tone held the kind of appreciation reserved for small decencies after repeated slights. Nathan inclined his head and returned to work, but his attention remained fixed. While Lily was away, Claire reached into her purse and carefully unfolded what looked like a handwritten budget note. She checked the numbers, counted cash discreetly, then slipped it away before anyone could notice. Nathan noticed. He also noticed the same silver-haired guest watching her with poorly disguised amusement. When Lily returned, she carried herself with exaggerated dignity, as if the walk to the restroom had transformed her into nobility. "Mom!" she whispered loudly. There were hand towels in a basket. Claire widened her eyes in mock amazement. "Actual basket towels?" Lily nodded solemnly. "Very rich." Claire laughed, genuine this time, and for a moment the harshness around them softened. Then a server accidentally brushed too close while passing and jostled Claire's water glass. A few drops splashed near the edge of the tablecloth. Nothing dramatic. Barely an incident. Yet Vanessa appeared almost instantly, as though waiting for confirmation of some assumption. "Please be careful," she said crisply. Claire blinked. "It was not." She stopped herself. "Sorry." Nathan had seen enough hospitality environments to recognize when staff had mentally categorized a guest as troublesome regardless of facts. Once that happened, everything became evidence. Across the room, the loud investor table requested a champagne upgrade. Vanessa practically glowed accommodating them. Here, she dispensed patience and measured teaspoons. Lily looked up at her mother. "Did we do something wrong?" Claire forced a calm smile. "Not at all, sweetheart." But Nathan saw the tiny fracture in her composure. He moved to the service terminal again, pretending to check orders while listening. "Can you believe this?" whispered one junior server nearby. "Vanessa is obsessed with image tonight." Another replied, "VIP donor event next month. She wants zero weirdness." Weirdness. Nathan repeated the word internally. A mother and child sharing soup on a birthday were weirdness. He turned toward Claire's table just as Lily quietly reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a tiny plastic bracelet with pink imitation gems. "Mom, should I wear this for dessert in case they sing?" Claire's expression softened completely. "It is beautiful." Lily carefully slid it onto her wrist with ceremony. Nathan watched a moment and felt something shift deeper inside him. Because whatever this evening became, that little girl had arrived believing this was magic. And increasingly, the adults around her seemed determined to prove her wrong. Lily admired the plastic bracelet on her wrist as though it belonged in the same universe as the diamonds glinting around the room. She lifted her hand toward the chandelier light, letting the pink imitation stones sparkle for her own amusement. "It looks real if you squint," she whispered with complete sincerity. Claire smiled, her exhaustion briefly replaced by affection. "Then we should all squint." Nathan, restocking glassware nearby, caught the exchange and felt an unexpected heaviness settle in his chest. There was something deeply unfair about how little joy some people were willing to permit others. The evening pressed on. Orders moved. Wine poured. Silverware chimed softly against porcelain. Then the dessert cart returned, this time stopping near the private equity group in the center of the room. A woman in an elegant charcoal dress, perhaps in her late 40s, wearing enough understated jewelry to quietly announce immense wealth, selected multiple desserts without glancing at prices. Lily watched with fascination, not envy exactly, but curiosity. "Do people really eat cake after all that food?" she whispered. Claire leaned closer. "Some people do." "Can we look at the dessert menu?" Claire hesitated just a fraction too long. "Maybe in a little bit." Lily nodded and shifted in her chair, trying to sit extra carefully like the sophisticated guests she had been studying all evening. Then it happened in the ordinary way accidents usually do. As Lily turned to reposition herself, her small elbow clipped the water glass near the table edge. The glass tipped, rolled, and spilled across the white linen, water rushing toward the aisle. Claire reacted instantly, grabbing napkins. Oh goodness, I am so sorry. Lily froze, eyes wide. I did not mean to. The spill was harmless. In any reasonable setting, it would have been cleaned in 30 seconds and forgotten. But the silver-haired guest from earlier leaned back sharply as if avoiding catastrophe. Unbelievable, he muttered loudly. Vanessa appeared almost immediately, summoned less by necessity than opportunity. What happened here? Claire stood halfway, dabbing frantically. It was an accident. My daughter knocked over the water. Lily looked stricken. I am sorry. Vanessa's expression hardened in that polished way that avoided overt cruelty while delivering its full effect. This is exactly why we ask guests to be mindful in tight service spaces. Nathan knew that was absurd. They had been placed in that tight corner deliberately. Claire swallowed embarrassment. I said I am sorry. We will take care of it. We will have staff handle the linen. Vanessa replied, though her tone implied a favor rather than standard service. The nearby guest had gone quiet in the attentive way privileged rooms often do when humiliation becomes entertainment. Claire reached for her purse. If there is a cleaning fee. Vanessa tilted her head. That depends. Nathan took one step forward, then stopped. Not yet. He needed to see how far this culture had rotted. Lily's eyes filled with immediate panic. Mom, I can help. It is okay, sweetheart. Claire's voice stayed gentle, but Nathan could hear strain beneath it. Then the woman in the charcoal dress suddenly touched her wrist and frowned. My bracelet. Her voice was controlled, but sharp enough to cut through the room. Where is my bracelet? Her husband looked down at the table. You had it 10 minutes ago. Vanessa turned instantly. What bracelet? Diamond tennis bracelet, the woman said. Custom piece. A subtle but immediate shift rippled through the room. Nathan felt it before anyone spoke. The woman's gaze swept the area, then landed briefly, unmistakably, on Lily. Lily instinctively clutched her little plastic bracelet with both hands. I had it when dessert arrived, the woman said. Vanessa's tone changed completely, now urgent and deferential. Let us stay calm. I am sure it is nearby. Staff began scanning the floor and surrounding tables. Claire pulled Lily slightly closer. I am sure you will find it. But Vanessa was already calculating. Nathan recognized the look. Fast assumptions. Convenient targets. The silver-haired guest gave a humorless chuckle. Well, this just got awkward. Claire stiffened. Excuse me? He raised both hands theatrically. No accusation. Just observation. Lily pressed against her mother. Mom? Claire lowered her voice. It is okay. Vanessa crouched near the spill area, then stood again. We may need to verify a few things. Claire frowned. What things? Standard procedure. The woman in charcoal crossed her arms. That bracelet costs more than some cars. Claire's face changed, not from guilt but from the sudden realization of what was being implied. Are you suggesting something? Vanessa maintained her professional mask. No one is suggesting anything. Yet. Nathan's patience thinned dangerously. Lily looked down at her own wrist as though suddenly ashamed of her toy bracelet. Mine is just pretend, she whispered, too quietly for most to hear. Nathan heard it. And in that instant, he understood the next few minutes might define far more than a restaurant inspection. The room changed in a way that had nothing to do with volume. No one shouted. No one needed to. Suspicion in places like the Aurelia room rarely arrived dramatically. It arrived through glances, silence, and assumptions dressed as procedure. Claire kept one hand on Lily's shoulder, steady but protective, while Lily stared down at her tiny plastic bracelet as though it had somehow become evidence of something shameful. My daughter has done nothing wrong, Claire said carefully, her voice calm but noticeably tighter now. Vanessa gave the kind of measured nod that acknowledged words without respecting them. No one has said otherwise. The woman in the charcoal dress folded her arms. I simply want my bracelet located. Her husband checked beneath their chairs while another staff member searched nearby carpeting. Nathan stayed outwardly composed, but inside, a line had already been crossed. He had seen difficult guests. He had seen misunderstandings. But what he was watching now was something uglier. It was selective suspicion. Lily tugged lightly on Claire's sleeve. "Mom, are we in trouble?" Claire crouched slightly to meet her daughter's eyes. "No, sweetheart. This is just a misunderstanding." Her voice was soft enough for Lily, but Nathan heard the tremor behind it. The silver-haired guest took another sip of wine and muttered to no one in particular. "These things usually are." Claire turned toward him with visible restraint. "What exactly do you mean by that?" He lifted one shoulder. "I mean expensive things do not usually vanish on their own." Nathan took a breath through his nose, controlling himself. Still, he watched. He needed clarity. He needed to know whether this was one manager making bad choices or a deeper disease inside his company culture. Vanessa addressed Claire again. "Would you mind remaining seated while we sort this out?" Claire blinked. "Remaining seated? We were not leaving." "Good," Vanessa replied. "That simplifies things." The phrasing was deliberate. Nathan noticed Lily noticed it too. Children understood tone faster than adults admitted. One junior server approached Vanessa quietly. "We checked the host stand and dessert station." Vanessa dismissed him with a glance. The woman in charcoal looked directly at Lily. "Honey, did you perhaps pick something up that does not belong to you?" Claire straightened immediately. "Do not question my daughter like that," I asked politely. "You implied she took something." Lily's eyes widened. "I did not take anything." Her voice cracked on the final word, and Nathan felt his jaw set. "Harder." Vanessa stepped in before Claire could continue. "Let us keep emotions low." Claire stared at her in disbelief. "My 6-year-old is being treated like a suspect on her birthday. No one is accusing her." Nathan almost laughed at the absurdity. That was exactly what they were doing, only with expensive vocabulary. Lily slowly removed her toy bracelet and held it out with trembling hands. "This is mine," she whispered. "Mom got it from the grocery store machine." The woman in charcoal looked almost uncomfortable for half a second, but only half. "No one said otherwise?" Claire's composure began to fracture. "Then enough." She reached for her purse. "Please bring the check." Vanessa did not move. "Before we conclude the evening, I may need to confirm a few details." "What details?" Claire asked. "Standard loss prevention protocol." Nathan knew with absolute certainty there was no such formal protocol being applied correctly here. Not like this. Not based on instinct and class bias. Claire stared at Vanessa, understanding now that politeness alone would not protect them. "You cannot be serious." "Ma'am," Vanessa said, voice cooling further. "High-value incidents require cooperation." Lily pressed closer into Claire's side, confused and frightened in the quiet way children become when adults around them stop making sense. Nathan took one slow step toward the group, then another, but paused again when he heard Claire speak. "I work 2 jobs," she said, not loudly, but with unmistakable dignity. "I saved for weeks to bring my daughter here because I promised her one special birthday dinner. We have sat through rude comments, poor service, and humiliation I chose to ignore because she was happy. But I will not stand here while strangers imply my child is dishonest." The room had gone almost entirely still. Nathan watched the reactions. Some looked embarrassed. Others looked inconvenienced. Vanessa's expression remained unreadable. "Then cooperate and clear this up quickly." Nathan felt anger rise fast now, but mixed with something else, admiration. Claire had endured far more than most people would for her daughter's sake, yet she still spoke with restraint. Instead of rage. That mattered. A busser suddenly approached from the private dining corridor. "Vanessa, should I check camera access?" Vanessa answered too quickly. "Not necessary yet." Nathan caught that instantly. Not necessary? If the goal were truth, cameras would be the first step. Unless truth was not actually the priority. Claire noticed it too. "There are cameras?" Vanessa ignored the question. Lily looked up at her mother with wet eyes. Mom, I just wanted birthday cake. That sentence landed harder than anything else all night. And in that moment, Nathan stopped evaluating. He started deciding. Claire's hand tightened around her purse strap as she looked from Vanessa to the elegantly dressed woman and back again, trying to understand how a simple birthday dinner had become this humiliating spectacle. Lily stood pressed against her side, small fingers gripping the fabric of Claire's dress as though proximity alone could make the room safer. I am asking one final time, Claire said, her voice low but steady. Bring the check. We are leaving. Vanessa held her posture with practiced authority. Not until this matter is resolved. Claire stared at her. You cannot legally keep us here over someone's missing jewelry based on assumptions. Vanessa's expression hardened further. Then help resolve it quickly. Nathan watched several nearby guests avoid eye contact, the universal behavior of people who knew something was wrong but preferred comfort over conscience. The silver-haired man leaned back in his chair, openly entertained now. If there is nothing to hide, this should be simple. Claire turned toward him, disbelief finally eclipsing restraint. Do you hear yourself? Lily tugged at Claire's arm. Mom, can we just go home? That question, so small and defeated, seemed to pull the last thread of hope from Claire's expression. Yes, she whispered, bending slightly toward her daughter. We are leaving. She reached for her coat. Vanessa stepped subtly into the aisle, not physically touching her, but making the message unmistakable. If you leave before this is addressed, that may create further complications. Claire went still. Are you threatening me? I am explaining consequences. Nathan felt anger settle into something colder and more focused. He memorized every word. The woman in charcoal sighed with theatrical disappointment. I do not enjoy scenes, but valuable items do not simply vanish. Claire straightened fully now, dignity replacing embarrassment. Then check your cameras. Vanessa answered immediately. That process takes time. Nathan knew that was nonsense. Internal access could be pulled in minutes. Then start now, Claire said. Vanessa ignored the request. Instead, she glanced toward a security staff member stationed near the private event corridor and gave the faintest nod. The man began walking over. Lily noticed him first. Mom? Her voice trembled. Claire turned, saw the approaching employee, and her face changed completely. Not anger. Fear. Not for herself. For her daughter. Please, she said, her composure finally cracking at the edges. Do not do this in front of her. The security employee slowed, uncertain, clearly reading the emotional temperature of the situation. Nathan saw hesitation in the man's face. Good. Not everyone here had lost perspective. Claire crouched to Lily's level, brushing tears from the child's cheeks. Sweetheart, look at me. Lily nodded shakily. You did nothing wrong. Then why are they mad? Claire swallowed. They are confused. Lily's lower lip trembled. I just wanted cake. Several guests shifted uncomfortably. Even the woman in charcoal looked away for a moment. But Vanessa remained fixed on control. Ma'am, emotional escalation will not help. Claire slowly stood, and Nathan saw something transform in her. Shame gave way to exhaustion. Exhaustion gave way to resolve. Do you know what? She said quietly. Keep the meal. Vanessa blinked. Excuse me? Claire reached into her purse, pulled out folded bills, and placed them carefully on the table. That is every dollar I brought. Keep it. Keep the soup. Keep the pasta. Keep your precious atmosphere. But you do not get another second of making my daughter feel like this. Nathan saw Lily staring at the cash, perhaps recognizing sacrifice in a way no child should need to. The silver-haired guest muttered, dramatic. Claire snapped toward him. No. What is dramatic is adults treating a child like a criminal over a missing bracelet no one has even proven was near us. Vanessa lifted her chin. Until the matter is resolved, I cannot simply allow? Claire repeated. You think I need permission to leave after being treated like garbage? The room had become painfully silent. Nathan noticed junior staff exchanging glances, some visibly disturbed. Good. Let them witness this. Let them remember it. Vanessa's professionalism began to slip. This establishment maintains standards. Claire laughed once, without humor. Standards? Is that what you call this? Lily buried her face against Claire's side. Nathan saw enough. He took one step forward. Then another. But before he could speak, the woman in charcoal suddenly touched the side of her designer handbag, frowned, and adjusted it. Nathan noticed the movement immediately. So did no one else. Claire picked up Lily's coat, preparing to leave anyway. Come on, sweetheart. Lily nodded weakly, wiping her eyes. The security employee hovered awkwardly, unsure whether to intervene. Vanessa opened her mouth, likely to stop them again. Nathan kept moving now, no longer interested in observing culture from a distance. Because the inspection was over. And accountability was about to begin. No one is leaving. Nathan's voice cut through the silence with calm precision, not loud, but impossible to ignore. Claire turned immediately, startled to see the server who had quietly directed Lily to the restroom now stepping between her family and the tightening circle of judgment. Vanessa's expression sharpened. Excuse me? Nathan met her gaze without hesitation. I said no one is leaving until this is handled correctly. The silver-haired guest gave a short laugh. Since when do servers dictate procedure? Nathan ignored him completely. Claire looked confused, exhaustion written across her face. Please, she said softly to Nathan, clearly assuming he was trying to help but not wanting him dragged into the situation. It is all right. We will go. Nathan glanced at Lily first. Her cheeks were still damp, her toy bracelet clenched in one hand. Then he looked back at Claire. No, he said quietly. It is not all right. Something in his tone changed the room. Vanessa crossed her arms. You are out of line. Nathan did not even look at her. Are there cameras covering this dining room? Claire answered before Vanessa could. She said yes. Nathan nodded once. Good. Vanessa stepped forward. You are not authorized to make that call. Finally Nathan looked at her. Then perhaps someone authorized should. The woman in charcoal straightened. This is becoming ridiculous. I simply want my property returned. Nathan's eyes shifted to her handbag for the briefest moment. Of course you do. The phrasing made her pause. Claire looked between them, uncertain. The security employee stopped advancing, clearly relieved someone else had taken control. Vanessa's patience cracked. Return to the service station immediately. Nathan removed the folded order pad from his apron pocket and placed it on the nearest empty table with deliberate calm. No. The single word landed harder than shouting would have. Murmurs spread quietly through the room. The silver-haired guest smirked. Well, this should be entertaining. Nathan turned toward him for the first time. Only if public humiliation is your hobby. The man's expression cooled. Claire blinked, clearly not expecting the quiet server to speak with such composure. Vanessa lowered her voice in the clipped tone manager's reserve for insubordination. You are finished here. Nathan gave a faint nod. That part may be true. He stepped toward Claire's table, picked up the folded cash she had laid down, and held it out to her. You should keep this. Claire hesitated. I cannot, yes, he said gently. You can. Lily looked up at him with watery eyes. Are we in trouble? Nathan crouched slightly so he was closer to her eye level. No, birthday girl. You are not in trouble. His tone softened in a way that made Claire study him differently. The woman in charcoal exhaled impatiently. Can someone competent please resolve this? Nathan stood again. Happy to. He looked directly at Vanessa. Request the camera footage from the last 30 minutes. Vanessa's jaw tightened. I am not taking operational instructions from wait staff. Nathan took a measured breath. Interesting choice. Claire spoke carefully. Sir, thank you, but I do not want this getting worse. Nathan turned toward her. Ms. Bennett, did your daughter take anything? Of course not. Did you? No, then let it get better. Claire stared at him, uncertain why hearing her name from a server unsettled her. Nathan noticed her reaction but stayed focused. The woman in charcoal shifted her handbag higher onto her shoulder again, a nervous adjustment so small most would miss it. Nathan did not miss anything now. Ma'am, he said politely, addressing her, would you mind checking your purse? Her expression changed instantly. That is offensive. Less offensive than accusing a child without evidence. I did no such thing. Nathan tilted his head slightly. Your memory may differ from the room's. Several guests looked away. Vanessa stepped in. This is unacceptable. Nathan nodded. We agree on that much. The silver-haired man scoffed. Who exactly do you think you are? Nathan looked at him evenly. Someone with a low tolerance for cowardice disguised as etiquette. A stunned silence followed. Claire looked as though she had forgotten how tired she was for a moment. Lily squeezed her mother's hand and whispered, Is he magic? Claire almost laughed despite everything. Vanessa's face had gone pale with anger. Security. The guard hesitated. Nathan looked at him and said evenly, Before you do anything, ask yourself whether you are about to remove the wrong person. The guard froze completely. Something in Nathan's certainty made the room shift again. Not understanding yet. Just instinct. The woman in charcoal finally opened her handbag with stiff movements, perhaps intending to make a point. Her hand paused inside. Her expression flickered. Nathan saw it. So did Claire. Vanessa did not. Well? Nathan asked calmly. The woman swallowed. And suddenly the balance of power began to move. The woman in the charcoal dress slowly withdrew her hand from her handbag, and looped over her fingers, unmistakably, was the missing diamond bracelet. For one suspended second, no one spoke. Even the pianist had stopped playing. The woman stared at the bracelet as though it had betrayed her personally. I must have placed it in here, she said finally, her voice suddenly smaller. Without realizing. Nathan held her gaze. It appears so. Claire exhaled sharply, not with triumph, but with the kind of relief that comes after holding yourself together far too long. Lily looked from the bracelet to her mother, trying to piece together adult logic that made no sense. So we did not do anything bad? She asked. Claire pulled her close immediately. No, sweetheart. Never. Vanessa's expression shifted rapidly through disbelief, calculation, and something approaching panic. Well, she said stiffly, these misunderstandings can happen. Nathan turned toward her slowly. That is what you think happened here. Vanessa swallowed. A guest misplaced an item. Tensions rose. The situation is resolved. Nathan stared at her for a moment that felt much longer than it was. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and made a call. He did not step away. He did not lower his voice. Daniel, he said evenly when the line connected. Come to the main dining room. Now. Vanessa frowned. Who is Daniel? Nathan ended the call and finally removed the plain black name tag from his server uniform. Regional Operations Director, he said. He reports to me. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Vanessa blinked. Reports to you? Nathan met her eyes. Nathan Whitmore. Recognition spread unevenly through the room. First from one of the finance executives. Then the silver-haired guest. Then a whisper from another table. Claire looked at him as though her mind had rejected the information entirely. The woman in charcoal went visibly pale. Vanessa actually took a half-step backward. No, she said instinctively, then stopped herself. Nathan's expression remained controlled, but all warmth had disappeared. Yes. The silver-haired guest sat up straighter immediately, suddenly eager to appear respectful. Mr. Whitmore, I had no idea. Nathan cut him off with a glance so brief it still managed to silence him. Claire looked down. At Nathan's hand, then at the removed name tag, then back at him. You are the owner? Yes. You were working here tonight? Yes. Lily stared up at him with wide eyes. So you are like a secret boss? Nathan looked at her, and for the first time in several minutes, a trace of softness returned. Something like that. Lily considered this seriously. That is very cool. Claire let out an involuntary breath that almost sounded like a laugh despite everything. Vanessa recovered enough to attempt damage control. Mr. Whitmore, if I had known, that is exactly the problem, Nathan said sharply. If you had known what? Vanessa froze. Nathan stepped closer, his tone calm in the most dangerous way. Would Ms. Bennet have been treated differently if she arrived wearing designer shoes? Vanessa said nothing. Would her daughter have received birthday dessert if she had ordered a premium tasting menu? Silence. Would cameras have suddenly become available if the accusation involved someone at the donor table? Claire watched him without speaking. Nathan continued. This was not a misunderstanding. This was prejudice wrapped in hospitality language. The words landed heavily across the room. Daniel arrived moments later, slightly out of breath, entering with the urgency of someone who knew Nathan did not make casual late-night calls. Mr. Whitmore. His eyes quickly scanned the scene. What happened? Nathan gestured broadly. An instructional failure. Cultural failure. Leadership failure. Vanessa's face drained of color. Daniel looked alarmed. Nathan spoke with crisp precision now. This child was implicitly accused over missing jewelry without evidence. Her mother was pressured, obstructed from leaving, denied standard guest treatment, and publicly humiliated while management ignored immediate access to surveillance review. Daniel turned slowly toward Vanessa, horrified. Is that accurate? Vanessa opened her mouth. Closed it. The woman in charcoal stepped in weakly. I did not mean for any of this. Nathan nodded once. Intent matters less than impact. Claire stood motionless, one hand resting protectively on Lily's shoulder, still absorbing the emotional whiplash of the evening. Nathan looked directly at her. Ms. Bennet, I owe you an apology. Claire blinked. You do not owe me, I do, he said firmly. Because this happened in my restaurant. Under my standards. Which means I failed too. Lily looked up at her mother. Does this mean we can still maybe have cake? The question broke the tension in the most human way possible. A few uncomfortable smiles appeared around the room. Nathan looked at Lily and answered without hesitation. Yes. It absolutely does. But first, he had unfinished business. Nathan stood in the center of the dining room with the kind of stillness that made everyone else seem suddenly uncertain where to look. Daniel remained beside him, visibly processing the scale of what had just unfolded, while Vanessa looked as though the polished confidence she wore every night had been stripped away in minutes. Claire kept one hand on Lily's shoulder, protective by instinct even now, as if the room might somehow change its mind again. Nathan addressed Daniel first. Effective immediately, Vanessa is relieved of management duties pending full review. Vanessa inhaled sharply. Mr. Whitmore, please, this is not necessary. Nathan's expression did not move. A child was humiliated because your judgment was based on appearances. It is necessary. Daniel nodded grimly. Understood. Vanessa looked toward Claire, perhaps hoping for intervention, but Claire simply held Lily a little closer. The silver-haired guest cleared his throat awkwardly. I think perhaps everyone got carried away. Nathan turned toward him. You openly encouraged it. The man looked embarrassed for the first time all evening. I was making conversation. You were making cruelty socially acceptable. The words landed without volume, which made them hit harder. The woman in the charcoal dress stepped forward, her voice unsteady. Ms. Bennet, I am deeply sorry. I truly did not realize I had placed the bracelet in my bag. Claire looked at her for a long moment. My daughter will remember how adults looked at her tonight long after anyone remembers your bracelet. The woman lowered her eyes. Nathan nodded slightly, recognizing the Truth in Claire's words. Then he crouched in front of Lily again, bringing himself to her level. I believe I owe you a birthday reset. Lily studied him with solemn seriousness. Does that mean I get to start the whole birthday dinner over? Nathan smiled, genuinely this time. Exactly that. Lily glanced at Claire for permission. Claire looked emotionally exhausted, but for the first time all evening, something lighter entered her expression. I think that sounds fair. Nathan stood. Daniel, clear the dining room distraction around table 14. Move Ms. Bennett and Lily to the window table. Several guests recognized the table immediately. It was the most sought-after seat in the restaurant. Daniel nodded at once. Right away. Claire shook her head instinctively. That is not necessary. Nathan looked at her kindly. Tonight, let me decide what is necessary. Before she could protest further, staff moved with entirely different energy than before, not out of fear alone, but shame. Fresh linens appeared. New place settings. Warm bread arrived first, exactly as it should have from the beginning. Lily stared at the transformation in disbelief. Is this all for us? Nathan answered. Yes. Even dessert? Especially dessert. Lily grinned so suddenly and completely that even Claire had to laugh softly. The tension in the room finally broke. Over the next hour, the Aurelia room became what it was always supposed to be. Lily received sparkling lemonade in a crystal glass that made her feel sophisticated. A chef personally prepared a child-friendly pasta dish, with extra birthday magic, according to Nathan. A towering chocolate cake arrived with a single candle and no performative spectacle, just warmth. Staff who had witnessed the earlier events offered quiet apologies through improved service rather than speeches. Claire sat straighter now, not because she needed to pretend she belonged, but because no one was making her feel otherwise. Later, after Lily had become deeply absorbed in deciding whether chocolate cake was better than birthday cake, Nathan and Claire spoke near the table. You did not have to do all this, Claire said quietly. Yes, I did. Most people with your position would have just comped dinner and moved on. Nathan glanced toward Lily. Most people were not watching a 6-year-old learn the wrong lesson about dignity. Claire was silent for a moment. I should probably thank you. You do not owe me gratitude for correcting something that should never have happened. She studied him. You really were testing your own restaurant? I was. And? Nathan exhaled softly. I learned more than I wanted to. A pause passed. Then he asked, What do you do, Claire? She gave a small laugh. Which job? Both. Mornings at a pediatric clinic reception desk. Nights doing remote customer service. Nathan nodded thoughtfully. You've handled impossible pressure with more professionalism than some managers I have hired. Claire smiled faintly. That is a strange compliment. It is also a sincere one. A week later, Claire received a formal invitation to interview for a guest experience leadership role within Whitmore Hospitality, one with stable hours, benefits, and a salary that meant birthdays would never require folded cash calculations again. She accepted. Months later, Lily would probably tell anyone who listened that a secret boss fixed her birthday. But what stayed with Nathan longest was something Claire had said without realizing its weight. Pretend we belong here. He changed company training around that sentence. Because true hospitality was never about deciding who belonged. It was about making sure no one ever had to wonder,